Welcome to Executive Protection Insights, and I'm Liam. There's a quiet assumption in executive protection that certain environments are easier than others. Airports feel structured, corporate offices feel controlled, and hotels often feel safe. Not completely safe, but contained, predictable, manageable. And that assumption is where problems begin. Because a hotel is not your environment, it's a shared one. And the moment that shared space fills with people you don't control, everything changes. Today's episode is called The Hotel That Wasn't Secure. This operation took place during an international trip. A major city, stable, developed. The kind of place where infrastructure works, systems exist, and nothing immediately feels fragile. The executive was staying at a high-end hotel, the type of property that markets itself on discretion and privacy. You've seen them before. Long driveway, controlled entrance, uniformed staff, security presence that's visible enough to reassure, but not enough to interfere. On paper, it checked every box. The team conducted the advance thoroughly, not quickly, not casually. They walked the property with intention. They observed the flow of people. They watched how guests moved through the lobby. They paid attention to how staff interacted with arrivals. They studied the entrances, main entrance, side access, service corridors. They checked where vehicles could stage. Where they couldn't, they reviewed camera coverage with hotel security. They identified blind spots, not theoretical ones, real ones. Places where visibility dropped, corners where movement could go unnoticed. They moved upward, elevators, stairwells, service elevators, emergency exits. They tested access controls, key card access to upper floors, how strict it was, how consistent, because there's always a difference between what a system is supposed to do and what it actually does. The executive's room was placed on a higher floor, not the top, not isolated, but positioned carefully. Enough separation from heavy traffic, enough proximity for response. The team took rooms nearby, one adjacent, one offset, creating coverage without clustering. Everything made sense. The plan was simple: keep movements clean, use controlled access, limit exposure in common areas, blend into the environment without losing awareness. And for the first day, that's exactly what happened. Arrival was smooth. The vehicle approached. The executive stepped out. The transition into the lobby was clean. No delays, no unnecessary attention. Check-in was handled discreetly. Movement to the elevator was controlled. They reached the floor, entered the room, and just like that, the operation settled. The environment felt predictable. Guests moved through the lobby at a steady pace. Staff operated with professionalism. Security was present but not intrusive. Nothing stood out. And when nothing stands out, confidence builds. Not recklessness, but comfort. The second day began the same way. Morning departure, controlled, predictable. Return in the afternoon, still aligned, still smooth. But something had changed. At first, it was just volume. More people and more luggage, more movement. Then it became density. The lobby was fuller, the sound level slightly higher, lines forming at check-in, groups gathering, and then the detail that explained it, a conference. Large enough to shift the entire dynamic of the hotel, multiple companies, multiple groups, all arriving at once. And with that, the environment changed. Not dramatically, but fundamentally. The hotel was no longer operating under normal conditions. It was under pressure. Elevators were busier. Wait times increased. People shared space more frequently. Strangers stood closer. Conversations overlapped. Movement became less predictable. The team noticed immediately, not as a problem, but as a shift. And shifts matter, because they change assumptions. That afternoon, the executive returned to the hotel. The vehicle pulled up, but now the entrance was active. Not chaotic, but crowded. More eyes, more movement, more attention. The transition inside required more navigation, more subtle adjustments. The team moved cleanly, but not invisibly. They reached the elevators. And this is where the environment really showed its change. More people waiting, more conversations, less space. They waited. Elevator arrived, doors opened, they entered, and several others entered with them. Normal, completely normal, but the space was tighter. Less control over proximity. The elevator doors closed. The ascent began. One floor, then two floors, then a stop. Someone exited, another stayed. The lead agent watched quietly, not obvious, not intrusive, just observing. Then another stop, more movement. People entering, exiting, and then something small but important. A guest entered just before the doors closed. No key card, no visible access, just movement. They rode up, and when the elevator reached a restricted floor, they stepped off. No hesitation, no barrier, no resistance. And in that moment, something became clear. Access control existed, but it wasn't absolute. It depended on behavior, on timing, on opportunity. The floor wasn't secure, it was just less accessible, and those are very different things. They reached the executive's floor, exited, moved to the room, everything still controlled. But the understanding had shifted. Later that evening, the hotel felt different again. Not worse, just heavier. More people, more movement, more unpredictability. The executive remained in the room. The team maintained position, monitoring, observing, and then the knock, soft, unexpected, not aggressive, but deliberate. The lead agent paused, looked toward the door. No one had been announced, no room service requested, no staff expected. The knock came again, same rhythm. The agent approached, didn't open, didn't engage immediately. Instead, spoke through the door. "Who is it?" A voice responded. Unclear, vague. Something about the wrong room. Something about confusion. But the tone didn't match the explanation. The agent didn't open, waited, listened. The presence remained, just outside, not moving away immediately. And that's what made it noticeable, because most people leave quickly when they realize they're at the wrong door. This presence lingered, just long enough to feel intentional. Then, footsteps, moving away. Silence. The agent stayed at the door a moment longer, listening, then stepped back. No escalation, no incident, but something had changed. The next morning, the hotel was fully active. The conference in full motion, people moving constantly, elevators rarely empty. The executive needed to move down, the team prepared, but now they were operating differently. Less assumption, more control. They approached the elevator, waited, entered, multiple occupants. Tight space, conversation, phones, movement. The elevator stopped frequently. People entered, exited. The environment felt compressed. And then again, something small. One person stayed. Through multiple floors, not exiting, not engaging, just present, not looking directly, but aware. The lead agent adjusted position slightly. Not obvious, but enough. Awareness increased, nothing actionable, but not ignored. They reached the lobby, exited, movement continued, clean, controlled, but internally different. Because now the pattern existed, not confirmed, but forming. And that's where experienced teams operate. Not on certainty, but on recognition. They didn't wait for something to happen. They adjusted, quietly, changed elevator patterns, varied timing, used different access points, coordinated more closely with hotel security, not because there was a threat, but because the environment no longer supported the original assumptions. And that's the reality. Nothing happened. No incident, no breach. But control had shifted because the environment had changed. And they recognized it early enough to stay ahead. If there's one takeaway from this story, it's this. A secure environment is only secure under the conditions it was assessed in. The moment those conditions change, your plan must change with them, because security is not built into the environment. It's maintained through awareness, and awareness is what keeps you ahead. Until next time, stay sharp, stay prepared, and stay operational.